Hi everyone, Stuart Hayden here, founder of Storm Beach, specialising in authentic leadership. Thank you very much for taking the time to be here today. This short video is for potential clients, and I'm going to talk a bit more about commitment. So, whether you're thinking of working with me or whether we've formally spoken, whether it's a casual phone call, an email, in some way you are a potential client right now. And equally you might have a large purchasing process, a tendering process that you're looking at, and wherever we're at in terms of our conversations, whether we've spoken or not spoken, we'll be somewhere along the journey of establishing what your needs are. So hold on to that, whatever potential client means to you, just hold on to that. And today's video really is about commitment. So if you have been in touch with me, then you're asking for my commitment, whether that be me outlining costs, time, dates, content, all those good things. And obviously I'm going to freely do that for you, and I appreciate that's what you need right now. But equally, if we could look for true commitment, which I imagine you want, and certainly what I want, is it has to go both ways. So if I was to send you a proposal based on your needs, I'm not just going to dump it at you and it's going to be something non-negotiable in your inbox. This is something where I need your commitment, and also you'll get my commitment as well. So it's two ways, so it's all good in terms of that. So that's the kind of plan, that's what this short video is all around, to look at you as a potential client, whatever that means, and think about the commitment, A, certainly from what you require from me, which perhaps has already started, but B, just think about the commitment that you can offer as well. Okay, so that's where we're at. I am reading from notes from time to time because we're bordering on the contractual stuff here, so two things really. A lot of what I want to offer you here and show you here is I want to be accurate, so I want to make sure that I'm precise and accurate in terms of what I share with you. But also, I don't want to forget some good stuff as well. So if I look down my notes, I'm just making sure that I'm being nice and precise for the purposes of this, because like I say, it could be bordering on contractual stuff. Because if I say something now, in a few months' time you say, "Oh well, you said that in a video," of course I'm duly obliged to hold myself to account for that. So we're going to look at three areas, and I would say whether you're a potential client or not, these three areas are just general personal development areas, so potentially of interest to anyone really, so hang on there, even if you're not thinking of being the P word at the top, potential. So our three areas, a bit of an introduction as to where you might be and where I might be right now. I'm going to talk about four things, kind of like the middle bit to the sandwich here, which I suppose is a bit more about my philosophy of how I would approach my work, and the overall piece here is getting to know me and my consultancy better. And then the final point that we'll finish on, those three words down the bottom here, which I'll talk more about later on. That's about solution to where you might be right now, so having more clarity for your needs development otherwise. Okay. So that's the plan. So let's start with the introduction. In terms of role, you're probably aware that I conduct my business to develop authentic leadership, and I'll say more about that a bit later on. And my role tends to fall into 5 different categories, which I love, so loads of variety in what I do. Tends to fall in the category of being a facilitator, certainly of being a coach, normally on a one-to-one basis, a consultant to individuals, teams or organisations. As you were, probably I do quite a lot of speaking engagements as well, so today I've got the camera, but sometimes there's an audience of hundreds of people. And finally, an author and writer. So those are my 5 areas, so facilitator, coach, consultant, author and writer. And I suppose you're thinking back to the potential word, and potentially you're looking at me for one or some of those 5 areas. So this is what you get a bit more of a flavour on as we're going through this short presentation. I suppose I'd say 2 things really. I think if you have a development need now, whether it's big, small or otherwise, it might feel like a challenge for you right now. If you're reaching out to people like me, you're testing the water, finding out what's happening, who's out there, how much it costs, all that good stuff. And I recognise that, and I've headed up management development teams and programs myself before I set my own business up. So I do recognise that, so I do empathise with that, and everything I'm about to share with you will definitely inform that, whether you choose to work with me, someone else, or don't even run any programs. I do recognise that challenge, and everything here is designed to help you with that, depending on where you're at. So yeah, hopefully, as your trusted advisor from today, and maybe from the things we've spoken about or things I'm sending you via email, you'll get closer to find out about what you need. Okay, so that would be me in terms of my role. And then obviously what I also want to do today is rather hide behind PowerPoint or send you a PDF document, is I want to embody and demonstrate as many of those 5 roles as I can today. So yes, I'm facilitating, yes, I'm coaching, albeit I don't think you'll be able to ask me a question, but you can get a sense of that approach. Yes, you'll be able to see my consultancy approach within here, particularly more so down the bottom in terms of the letter in the presentation. Got a sense of public speaking, that's coming through as well in some levels, and maybe some of the writing as well, because a lot of what I've got here is in either my first book, which is called It's Not About the Coach, or obviously in subsequent books which are in production. Okay, so that's a bit more about me, Storm Beach, and everything that we do. In terms of results, it's one area that I will definitely be able to offer you more information on. Can't do it right now because I don't know who's watching today, but I'll be able to describe to you, based on your development needs, what results I have achieved with clients either currently or in the past. So there's a bit of that will come through. 2 things probably. I'll be able to give you a description of what that program, workshop, speaking event, whatever it might be, looked like. So you got a sense of what it was, what the needs were, those kind of things. And where appropriate, I'll also get a testimonial from the client as well. So a lot of my clients are very willing to share how the program went personally for me, for them and the team and everything else. So I'll certainly be able to share that. That's probably one thing that probably should be greyed out here, because until I know who you are, I can't address that personally, but I will do that. Third part really in terms of the introduction to me, but to the overall business of facilitating, coaching and everything else, is I think the industry as a whole is either having to go through an upheaval or not go through an upheaval. Okay, but I'm of the former. I think we need to have an upheaval in what we do, how we approach our work. Okay, I'm not someone who sits for tradition, not someone who does what we've done before, 10, 20 years ago, unless it's very good and still current. So I think there's an upheaval there right now. And for me, my approach, and hopefully you got a sense of this already if we've spoken or emailed or seeing this, is I want to bring innovation, contemporary feel to it, a challenging feel to it, so that we're upheaving what could be called traditional learning events, whether it's coaching, workshops, speaking, or whatever it might be. And this is an example of that. I mean, how many YouTube videos are you watching from potential suppliers who are sharing this good stuff absolutely for free, of course. So it probably comes down to 2 things. Things like technology, platforms. I'm busy, here I am on my beloved iPad that I do need the notes, but I am a bit addicted. But I'm someone who's busy developing content to go on the online courses, on iPads, phones, learning management systems and all the rest of it. So I think there's one level of that contemporary feel. It doesn't always have to be technology, but it's the creativity or the sense of freshness or presence that you bring to the work. And if that's the kind of new world, I'd say the old world can sometimes get left behind, and I'll talk more about this later on, but as you know, it's about authentic leadership for me. So I think the new world is embracing the new, whatever that is, and I think the old world is going back to our roots in terms of our strong values of who we are, and in my case, being an authentic leader, a coach, manager, whatever it is. So yeah, you definitely get a bit of upheaval with me, and I'm starting that, and if you're here now, you're probably up for a bit of that as well. The next thing, which is our finishing point really, but I'm going to mention it here in the middle, is about some kind of solution. So what I'll do, and I'll give you just a flavour of one here, is based on your needs, if I have them, I will start to present you a bit of a structure as to how you might, or we might, develop a solution to what you're facing. Okay, so I'll come to that a little bit later on. It normally comes down to 3 things. 3 things is normally enough, more than 3 is too much, less than 3 is probably not enough, so we go straight to the 3-sided shape, which is the most efficient shape known, and we'll look at some solutions to what you're facing up here in your potential bit. So let's say it was a coaching course that you're potentially looking at for me or for others, then I'll give you some ideas in terms of just simple questions, 3 of them, or at least 3 areas. You can obviously expand on that if you needed to. that would get to that, get you closer, and therefore me potentially going to work together to get to that solution. Okay. So at some point in this journey for you, wherever you're at, it might be helpful to go to that solution, which I'll share with you right at the very end, as a taster anyway, for you to actually address that. And I can send you more stuff if you want. You email me, it's all very open, with questions, with the 3 areas that might be most relevant for you, just to start mapping out what you need right now. And I suppose the other thing I'd say, you can use that with me if we go forward. You can use it with potential suppliers if you choose someone else. You can use it with your team. It's completely open there. And I wouldn't want you to see that as an admin task. That's not admin. It could come down to 3 words, 3 sentences. It could come down to pages and pages really, but probably we're looking for something a bit more concise than that. So get curious, and it will serve you in the short and long term to whatever that is, to kind of start mapping out those solutions. And of course, if we do progress, that bit will be done between us, because the stronger our solutions at the start, obviously the better it is when I end up speaking, coaching for the work that we've done at the back end. So we'll do a lot of work around your solutions. One more thing to finish off before we kind of get into some of the sort of philosophy, I suppose, of who I am and what I do, is the mistakes that people make at this stage of being a potential client. I think the one biggest mistake is just people not having that clarity of direction of what it is that they want. So again, I hope you get a sense from this is starting to deal with that for you now. So you're addressing that right now, so you're in good shape. But just making sure that you've got a bit more clarity about what you want. So you might be saying, yes, it's about the leadership program, great, but can you just give me a bit more detail? If you have it now, and fine if you don't, but that means you're aware that you're lacking in direction. But if you can provide more direction for me, then great. But remember, it's not just for me, it's not a selfish activity. It's for you, the team, the budget holder, sponsor, organisation, participants, and all that good stuff. So that would be my biggest observation there. In terms of mistakes, it's about direction, and that's why we'll typically, come back to that in a second, look at solutions that deal with that lack of direction. Okay, so that's all good. That's the introductions done really. These areas in blue here, there's 4 areas about value, making values valuable, referral and personal development. I cover those in a lot more detail in the written word. If we're going into kind of a potential situation, there'll be proposals and stuff involved. I'll write all that down, so all the nuts and bolts is continued there. They're all going to be, bespoke to what your needs are. So I'll cover these now, but I'm going to skim over the top, just to give you a sense of what they are, give you a sense that they'll be coming your way if you're taking things forward. But the detail will come in the written word. So in terms of value, you know this already, and this is beautifully role modelling what I do. I'm going to talk to you about this, but you've had this from the start. You know this. If you've been in touch with me, you'll know what this is. But the value for me around my business is around authentic leadership. Okay. The word leadership helps define what I mean by that, but really it's authenticity. So it doesn't happen really always in a leadership situation per se, but authenticity definitely does. So from what I'll be sharing with you now, I'm going to be completely authentic, and any of my programs, whatever it is you're thinking of, your P for potential, there'll be authenticity, authentic leadership, authentic coaching, whatever it might be, as part of that. That's what you get. That's what I can offer you. Other people can offer different things. That's me. That's where it's at. So things like authenticity would be, for me, is about recognising your inner values, whatever those are important to you as a leader, coach, whatever it might be, and then sharing those on the outside, so demonstrating them externally. That is leadership. That for me is the kind of recipe for life. On the inner, you want to do one thing. On the outer, how can you demonstrate and be those values? Okay, and that happens in all walks of life, not just business and leadership or coaching. That happens everywhere. And it's embracing how that that duality between what we want individually and what's happening around us. Okay, so there's a whole piece there, and obviously that can go into full depth there. But to finish off, the 2 things I would say: if all that sounds a bit too much for you, and that you're thinking perhaps you've got quite a simple need that doesn't need this big authentic leadership or authenticity or whatever it might be to really put it, to fly the flag for that, that's absolutely fine, because it also, the authenticity, I can't turn it off, will just sit in the background, it'll drive the program, it'll inform the program, be an undercurrent to the program if required. Okay? So the values, they'll be there, either there, with fireworks going off, or they'll be in the background. One thing I would say, if they're in the background, when people discover, this is my intention behind the program, people grab that and they love it and just want to know more and more and more. And that's where, my clients, that they're be part of a strong community that I'll talk about later. So that's value. In terms of making your values valuable, okay, so it's just play with that statement for a start. It's great having values, but remember, you're going to demonstrate them on the outside, whether that's your job, family life, personal life. You're going to make them valuable, okay? So when I look at programs, I look at the value that we can add using our values. And for me, when I judge a program, back to your potential, what is it that you're thinking about, is I look at the value that can be created between us for the organisation, the team, or the individuals, however it kind of shapes up. Okay, so when you'll be asking me, and let's be honest, somewhere in this there'll be a price involved, which is fine. Investment is obviously very important. I'll be looking at an outcome-based project quote. Okay. So again, I'll map all that out in much more detail because this is real nuts and bolts stuff as and when we get to it. But I'll be saying to you, this is the value I think the program can add, once I know more of what that program is, okay? And then I'll quote you my price based on that, okay? Typically when we get here, my commitment to you is I will at least double your money for a 200% increase in terms of what you invest, okay? So I'm not a betting man, but in betting terms, if you win, or in my view, £15,000 based on the value of the program, whatever it might be, let's say it's worth 15 grand to the business, then I'm not going to charge you 16 grand because that would be daft, you're going to lose money. As a 200% gain, it will come straight back to £5,000. Okay, so as an example, just a pure example, okay, whatever the value is, the cost of that program is likely to be all dependent. That's why that's why I've got my notes here. Likely to be the return on the investment is going to be a third of that. Okay, so let's say it was a coaching program that I thought for whatever duration, number of people, whatever it was, would add £15,000 to your business. Okay, then the likelihood is the costs are going to come in the year to be £5,000. Okay, the big message with that is really, this is all investment. Whatever you end up paying, you will get a return on that. It will be valuable to you, and in my view, you're going to triple your money or double your money and get your bet back, whichever way you look at it. But that's the approach that I take. Okay, so some people look at things like daily rates here. I can quote daily rates, but really it doesn't really deal with value. A daily rate with 3 people versus a daily rate with 30 people. So it always comes back to that. So it's a nice way to look at it, not just for me, but think about how you price this. If you're saying, well, Stuart's coming in for X amount, well, I'm also going to give you the tools and information for us to then demonstrate to budget holders, etc. The program can add X amount even more. So that it takes a bit more effort, to be honest, and all this takes a lot more effort. Watching this video takes effort, but again, we go straight back to things like your solution and everything else being enhanced. Okay, so that's that. In terms of referrals, my business model is a boutique model. I'm not a big supermarket, with a horde of trainers sitting behind me. In fact, I don't even use the training word because I think that's where you have high volume but no impact. So I tend to do all the work myself in terms of being the lead for that. And what I really, value in my business is referrals. Word of mouth or whatever it might be is brilliant to me. I do a piece of work. I've just had this within local government. I've had one council, worked with them for 12 months, done some great work and coaching, and now literally the bordering council, as part of the network, has said, hi, I'd like the sound of what you've done over here, can you help us out with that? Okay, so referrals are really important to me, and I prefer to work with referrals. So I prefer the fact that you've A, spoken to someone, because that's how you've ended up here, which often happens, that's the easy way, that's the natural referral. B, if you have found me more randomly from a website or whatever it might be, or a blog or social media, that's all good as well. All I would ask you is to think about speaking to someone that I've worked with, so that it kind of gets you on board with a bit more about my philosophy. And again, it sounds like more work, and it is technically, but this makes our overall proposition much more valuable. If you speak to someone else and know what value added there, we'll know whether to do more of that, different to what that was, etc, etc. So this really informs the overall process. And the other thing I'll talk about referrals, again, more in the written word, is I value them. So if you're going to refer someone else to me, then I will value that, and I'll look at ways how I can reward that, whether that's financially, my time, my energy, or whatever it might be. So I do recognise that's important. I'm not just after your referrals for the sake of it. Really important to me. The other thing I would say then, in terms of we're all in the business potentially of personal development, is I want to put the personal back in personal development. And again, from my days of heading up management development programs, I know that it's quite personal. So if you've got a leadership group that you're looking to work with, you take that quite personally. You've got trusted colleagues, even friends within that group. So you don't want to just farm this piece of work out to someone you've never met before, someone you don't know. So I want to make this whole thing personal, okay? And we are doing that right now. So all good stuff, getting to know each other, albeit via the medium of a video. So that's my goal there. Things like your initial needs, whatever they might be for any potential programs, I always do that free of charge. I want to find out a bit more, and I love this because I love finding out about what's happening for you, the team, the organisation. So I love doing that anyway. So I will always want to find out what your needs are, absolutely free of charge. Okay. Equally, if we end up working together, for initial clients, so if it's the first time we've worked together, and again you can challenge me in this, I will always offer you 1 day of my time absolutely free, and I would call this more of a research kind of phase, in that yes, you've got your needs mapped out for free, and now we've got a sense of who you are and where you're going, and that's time for me to research the business, the team, the individuals, and ideally that would be face-to-face time, depends on geography obviously, with those people, to spend time in the business, just to be there, just to get a sense of what it's like to smell the coffee, pick up on the energy, what's happening in the organisation, if it's there's a restructure going on, a new manager coming in, new chief exec, whatever it is, just to spend a day, all with your permission. So again, if it doesn't work, that's absolutely cool, but spend a day within your organisation free of charge. Okay, and again, thinking, well, why would he do this? But then when I stand up a week later and present to 16 of your top managers, I've got, I can really empathise with them, and I can really come from a much more powerful place. Two other things I would talk to you about being personal. In terms of design costs, a lot of consultancies, trust me, they can make really good money charging you for design work that they've already got locked up on their laptop anyway. Okay, that for me is nonsense. I just, again, being transparent, as I hope I'm coming across now, being authentic, I look at your piece of work, and if I've got something locked up on my Mac that is similar, then great. If I can use that, I will. So design costs really, to me, have to be looked at each time. And typically, you're employing me as an expert in all this stuff. So typically, I should and had got all this stuff, all the content for a workshop or a speaking event, locked up on my Mac. So I will share it, because that doesn't make sense to keep charging people for something that has been developed 10 years ago. If there are design costs, because of course, you will do some bespoke stuff, okay, and that's all good as well, and I love that kind of creative design phase. Again, what I do, there will be a cost involved, but I recognise that if you're, have a need to design, say, a 1 day workshop, which needs, I don't know, let's say a day of my time, because it's near to some content I already have, but it's very bespoke in what you want. And that's often when you mix in two things. So, I don't know, if you want something plus something, okay? That's when you tend to go into this kind of definite need for design. I will only charge you 50% of the time required, okay? Now, the thing with that is, if I design this 1 day workshop in whatever it is, I have that, that's mine and yours. And then 2 years later, I have another client saying, oh, have you got anything in X, Y, and Z? And I go, oh, I did that. It's really unfair, I think, that I've charged you 100% and then use that 100% of value with the client later on. So if we go into the design phase, the message is there, I will work with you at a 50% rate, share it, absorb it, because we're both learning, we both get the content, so it's got to be 50-50, isn't it? So if you're seeing any costs for design work at all, big caution, that's always my view. And if it's 100% rate, i.e. they're not absorbing some of those costs, then there's a bit of an alarm bell for me there. So that's good. The final thing I would say as well, first time clients, again, to keep it personal, one thing I do as well is look at the first 3 days or so of our engagement. So if it's a 10-day program, we'll look at the first 3. Then normally I look at that and I'm not interested financially on that. I need to cover my costs. So I always look at a really strong discount about your first 3 days of work. Okay? Again, that's a lower risk for you. Bring me in and obviously you get a good return for that. As long as you're in it for the long term, obviously you can abuse that and just bring me in for 3 days. You'll get great, great solutions and very cheap. But I will establish your needs, don't worry, and your commitment, back to that word, to see whether you're potentially in it for the long haul. There's no commitment there really. You don't have to then say, well, thanks for coming in for 3 days, and feel like you have to bring me in again, because let's face it, things change. You might not have that need anymore. So don't feel like you're bound by that, but for a starter, I want to make it personal, and all those things I've talked about start to get personal. Okay, we're at the solution time now. You've got these anyway, you've got a sense of these anyways, because you've been doing all 3 of these when you've been watching this and what we've spoken before. So again, as a sample solution, just to get it out there, something that will guide you and I throughout this whole process. It'll always come down to 3 areas. One of the biggest areas I look at, and this will be bespoke to your needs, but again, I don't know what these are until we speak, could be about establishing your direction, establishing the drive and energy, and demonstrating the value and all this good stuff to whoever, an individual, a team, an organisation, budget holder, whoever it might be. So what we'll work with is at some point, 3 areas, solution framework, and this is just a sample one, okay? So let me give you a bit more information on what this one might look like. So direction really is about giving you purpose, presence and meaning to your program, okay? Having a sense of where it's going, and literally that's like setting the compass and starting to know what direction you're heading in. Again, early days you might not know that at the start, or you might have some of the information, but just being clear on that direction. And that obviously pins right back to that one of the most common mistakes, okay? So we'll play with questions here. I can send you these questions. Obviously, if we've got a conversation, it can be more of a coaching conversation question based around your direction. One of them might be, just as a sample question, is what level of influence do you need to exert? So what level of influence do you need to exert so that people are drawn to your vision and results for this program? So the question here is about direction, influence, so that people can be drawn into what you want to achieve as results and vision. Okay? Now again, just like my whole approach here, this isn't necessarily that easy. It will take some exploring, some reflecting, some speaking to other people, gathering information, whatever it might be. But it's really important to get that down. And as I said before, that can be, I don't want it too long because that's probably not clear, but there can be information to that. There can be one word to that. There can be a sentence to that. So it can be really quite accessible to you depending on where you're at with your thoughts. The next one then is about your drive. So what is your drive? What is the team's drive? What's the organisation drive? Basically, where is the energy within your organisation as a whole for this piece of work, and where is the energy lacking? Okay, so it's all about putting fuel in the tank for the program, the potential, and just checking right now, where's the energy, where's the drive, what's the trigger for change, and all that kind of good stuff. So that's really important to kind of appreciate and understand, because again, we can know what energy we've got, so we'll use that. Advocates, let's get that person on board who's really got the drive for this, and equally we'll know where not to waste our time right now, or where we might need to fill some gaps as we're going forward. Okay, so the drive is really important. So I'll give you a drive question just as a sample one. So remember, this is in the context for the design and delivery of something, a program, whatever it might be. And a question here might be, how can you broaden your mind to new possibilities? Okay. This is all about our personal energies at the very root level. So one of the questions here could be, how can you broaden your mind to new possibilities? Okay, just check in. It might be a major deal to you, broadening your own mind, team's mind, chief exec's mind to all these possibilities, or it might not. But again, we'll work with that to find out, what is the real root here. So it's back to the upheaval. What is the value going on here in terms of drive for whatever it is that we're discussing? And finally, demonstrate. So, you know, if this is the compass set, this is the drive, so you fill your car with petrol, you're off on your journey, that's it. This bit is about taking other people with you. Someone once said to me, a good colleague of mine who I really value his work, he said to me, if you're not, and he was coaching me, he was kind of a supervisory role, he said, if you're not taking other people with you, what's the point? And that really resonated with me. It's about a journey, and some of the best journeys, you know where you're going, you've got some kind of fuel to get there, whether it's in the petrol tank or, you know, your ability to move and go somewhere, and you take other people with you so you can share that and, you know, come back to everything we talked about, share that value. So really in our context, you know, what do we have to demonstrate to the organisation, etc., in terms of this programme and where it's going. So, you know, I kind of mapped this out as a bit of almost like a Gantt chart. This is moving towards, you know, the right-hand side. This is, you know, starting here, moving there. You know, this happens more towards the end, if you like, as well. But we have to know what that might be at the start. Okay, so we start before we're ready, we get this going, and then we can start, albeit this might come, you know, months or even years later on. So direction is definitely about authenticity, your drive is definitely about energy, and your demonstration is definitely about culture. And if that was to sum up my work, what I could offer, that would be it in a nutshell, really. So the final question here around demonstrate could be, how can you integrate complex factors and multiple perspectives in the development of this program? Okay, so if we're required to demonstrate back the value that we're adding based on how can you integrate complex factors and multiple perspectives in the development of this program, what would they be? Okay, so what's going on? What do we then need to show back to, you know, the sponsors, stakeholders? What do we need to demonstrate? And ultimately, you know, how or does this fit to the overall culture? Okay, so that's it. Thank you for your time. Loads of good stuff here. You might be feeling a bit like, well, you know, what do I do next? Well, what I would say is you've done some great stuff just by being part of this today. So that's going to inform you and guide you a great deal. Take this, reflect on it, look at what you've got. If you are receiving a proposal from me as well, this might be a double approach. So you might be A, having the proposal in front of you, or B, having that soon, depending on our timescales. This is just part of that to inform where you're going and really to kind of, you know, bring you back and go from there. Of course, you know, this is a great medium to share to, you know, you generally, but, you know, right now, whenever you're ready, you can pick up the phone, email, or whatever it is you need to take this further forward to see where you're at. If you're not going to work with me, no problem, keep in touch, it's all good, keep, you know, share what's going on. I've got people that love all this and said, well, right now, we've got no budget, or we're still going through so much change. You know, they're out there, they're part of the referral community. And, you know, I had some the other day, 4 years they came back to me, hadn't spoken for 4 years, and it wasn't even the person I'd spoken to, you know, so hold on to it. It ended up being a referral. I said, who referred you? And she told me the person's name. I was like, don't even know who that person is, so it's obviously a referral, a referral, a referral, a referral. So, you know, keep in touch if you're not going to work with me ever, but hold on the possibility that you might, or equally, see where we're at for further development. If you are going to, you know, take this further, then just do take this further, whatever that is. You know what the next step is now, because it's in here somewhere. It's something within you. It might feel like it's a long way away, but I bet you it's really close. So take time out, find what that is, and just press the button on whatever the next step is. Thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure. It's been a blast, and I hope to connect with you soon. Take care. Bye.